I have an idea. Let's not paint a miniature and make a miniature painting. Yeah. Hello my friend, back again. In this video we're going to be making a painted backdrop. It involves a lot of just kind of abstract techniques, of course a lot of wet blending as per usual. It's difficult to explain, so I would say that this video is more of a mood piece. Please enjoy the ride as we walk through this creation, and there's definitely some knowledge to be gained here. So observe, analyze, interpret, repeat. Off to the races. The footage you are watching has been sped up 300% because it's a long process. It's very touch and go. But to start off, I have a base coat of moldy ochre. I did that in multiple layers. Preceding this, didn't want to bore you all with me laying down 7 layers of moldy ochre. And to take it further, I'm wet blending. Decided I want kind of an arid atmosphere, slightly overcast. So I'm taking that moldy ochre, blending some Kato red highlights, some Liquitex titanium white into place. There really are no rules here. These brush strokes are creating a lot of fun irregularities and cloud forms. You just want to make sure that you're working from back to front. Even on a two-dimensional surface, cover the background before you start bringing little mountaintops, peaks, hanging corpses, dragon birds, whatever, thunder lizards. Start with these very abstract clouds. It's very fun to do if you're always trying to paint these technical miniatures. This can teach you a lot about how the paint behaves on a two-dimensional surface and just add to your greater understanding of controlling the paint. Here I'm adding some silhouettes of these yonder mountains. I have mixed some Gun Corpse brown and some Kato red highlight together, doing a little test fit of Madax. You can see a dark model set against the bright backdrop. Very nice contrast there. And this second mountaintop has just a little bit more orange mixed into it. As these objects pass into the distance, they're going to become less and less visible, and it's going to look a little rough at first. I'll be adding layers and layers to get that nice pure saturation. I'm still working with semi-diluted paint. I mean, basically, I have pure paint on the palette, but my brush, the bristles are wet, so I can sweep it around, get a little control. Controlling the slightly uncontrolled. It's like an abstract painting. It's great. And then there's another mountain peak even further back, so just painted that in the pure orange. And we'll start to drag just a little more kind of texture and detail into these peaks. Take a peek at those peaks. All right, not too shabby. Just getting a nice wet blended transition laid in place. I want you all to picture Bob Ross in your heart. And if you're looking for some inspiration, feel free to use the old internet search engine. I looked at a lot of Frank Frazetta artwork before this. He has beautiful backdrops. You know, it's really cool to have this abstract background and then a nice detailed model in the foreground. And here we'll add some smaller clouds, you know, again, adding to that distance. Of course, adding to the atmosphere. I'm going to use atmosphere like 20 more times in this video, but we want to maintain that scaling. You know, some small items like maybe a flock of birds and controlling the size of these clouds will really sell that effect. I love combining the two-dimensional and the three-dimensional aspects, kind of marrying two art forms. Feel free to move this piece around in your hands wherever you can get a more comfortable brush stroke. That's what I want you to do. You see? Coming together. I've created a nice V shape there to kind of frame things. accent my model standing at the foreground. That's what led me to create the mountains in the formation that I did, because he's very face forward with his 2 feet planted, so a nice V shape will accent that kind of strong, imposing look that he has. And we'll keep adding amounts of tan and orange to these mountains, just smoothing them out. I'm all over the place. There really is not a major plan. I'm just kind of letting things happen and then guiding the happenings, if that makes sense. It's very abstract. But I hope you see the amount of freedom here. That, again, with Bob Ross, there are no mistakes, right? There are only happy accidents. Like all you beautiful people out there. Shout out to my fellow happy accidents. All right. And separating those clouds, I'll drag a little bit of atmospheric mist over those mountain tops. I know clouds don't hang down across mountains, but sometimes the fog can interfere, especially as dusk is setting in. Putting a tiny flock of birds in there just to further accent the distance and the scale of everything. And just refining, defining, adding to that saturation. Just wherever these clouded shapes come out, then I'll be wet blending and pushing around those. And just back and forth, choosing lighter colors, darker colors. Just pushing things here and there. Coming right along, let's let that sit and dry for a minute and see what it looks like when it's all desaturated once again. We also have a little fun trick to play. I'll be using a portion of this plastic card as a bit of a cutting board, and I'm laying down sort of like a set of shingles. I've got this masking tape. You can see how it overlaps, and it's overlapping in that way, so when I peel it off from the opposite direction, it's going to stay in the shape that I'm cutting. Just tracing it around with a pencil, getting the feel for it. I'll take a fresh X-Acto blade, very carefully run it around the circle, just like so. And I'm choosing to have 2 of these silhouettes of the planets hanging in the sky because it implies that we're not on Earth. This place is a lot more fun than our planet, especially right now. And I just love capturing that otherworldly fantasy art typified by a lot of my 80s heroes. And we'll throw that up in the sky there. Not too shabby. And now I'll take some of that Liquitex titanium white and I'll start pulling some rays of light from behind these silhouettes. Just like that. Try to keep my forehead out of the shot. It's going to take a few layers to get it to look nice and saturated. Get it just right. Just be patient. Enjoy the ride. Painting is fun, so do not rush your fun. And a little bit of orange in there. Decent. I'll very carefully peel the tape off. We'll get a better view of that in a second, don't worry. I wasn't quite happy with the saturation of the white, so I'll just go in there with my brush and I'll go until I'm happy. And of course accenting a little bit of that circle that wasn't accessible before when I had the tape laid down. Be shading, just the side, the bottom corner of these, well, there's no corner on a circle, but kind of laying in a sort of a crescent shape. Letting all of that dry. Again, just working up the layers. We'll do a test fit. I'm liking it. very dark model with a bright backdrop. It's a nice point of composition, having that warm and cold and dark kind of combination going on. They complement each other nicely. And again, forget about Earth. This planet, whatever's going on in the atmosphere, is completely alien to anything you've seen. So there are no wrong moves. Get out the old toothbrush, because I want this to look like a painting. So I'm just gonna kind of smatter some random dots around. This is definitely just an artistic choice. I have no idea what the dots are. I wanted to have some of this texture and interference in the atmosphere. Now I can take a little bit of that darker brown and just add a little more texture to the mountains. Just make sure the shadows are all on the same side. In this case, the light is coming from the left-hand side. And many, many layers, just making sure that the colors are saturated, and also laying those kind of irregularities over one another. It's creating a really cool effect. You can see as it's been building. And a little detail on those heavenly bodies. Some call them planets. Bring those birds back up because they have disappeared under the weight of the paint, but no problem. I also need a little bit more orange. I'll pull that on the side that's facing more towards the light. Brighten these mountains up. And making sure that everything is nicely silhouetted as these colors blend together. You'll be adding and removing amounts of paint in your blends. No worries. Yeah, there's just so much freedom in this. I would encourage you to sit down and practice. Just paint on a two-dimensional surface, see how the paint behaves. It will make you better at miniature painting, I promise. There's a lot of freedom to be found here, and a lot of useful information. Even if it is not so clearly defined, it's pretty abstract, but I think seeing is believing. And again, as these mountains dip down into the atmosphere, I want them to be disappearing. Brightening that up once again. So nothing, you know, it's not heavily complex, but there is just so much going on here. I like it, honestly. I mean, of course I do, but it's very beautiful to look at. And we'll pull some little rings around these, kind of an eclipse happening, I guess. Yeah, that's what we'll go with. Not bad at all. Give old Madax a test fit. I like it. I'm even gonna let that little droplet run there. Of course, I'm never happy. Once it's dried, I'll go back in and just give a little touch here and there. And there he is in his completed glory. I know this video wasn't quite as formulaic as an ordinary tutorial video, but I still think it serves to demonstrate and show some of the process for creating a two-dimensional painting. I kept it relatively simple. I would encourage you to go out and try your own painting on a flat space. It can really add to the information about how the paint behaves. Honestly, I think it's more difficult painting a miniature than a flat piece of paper. And on that paper, as well as in midair, there is no law. Do as thou will. So I hope to see some of your two-dimensional work. I would like to hear from you in the comments what you thought about this video. Aside from that, let's get out there. We have a world to paint.